let's get cracking with the front page of The Australian today, Nathan. Tomorrow morning, the Billa Wheeler family reunion is the headline there, as freedom hopes rise. And the Oz writes that after more than 3 years in Australia's immigration detention system, the Tamil family, known for the Queensland town of Billa Wheeler, where they once lived, could be as free as soon as today. This, of course, is for tomorrow. Government sources said that the Immigration Minister, Alex Hawke, was expected to release the family from detention on Christmas Island, where they've been since August 2019, and reunite them in Perth. But when you get into the detail, it says no decision had been made on Monday, so today, and the family could be moved into community detention, Nathan. Enormous pressure on the federal government, lots of distraction for them. I note the commentary from the Australians readers. I read about 900 comments, vast majority of those deeply critical, saying, the federal government's blinked, don't do it. More conservative readers saying, don't let this be the catalyst for the return of people drowning at sea.
Jane, I think there's several points we need to make. We need to move through them in really a logical order. Firstly, there's no decision been made by the responsible Minister, Alex Hawke. That's number one. So we don't know what the decision is going to be, although obviously ministers' offices and the PMO have made positive noises about there'll be an outcome that'll be suitable for the family. In fact, Deputy Prime Minister McCormack's also said something similar. That being said, there's been a lot of commentary about compassion, and let's look at these people and let's be compassionate towards them, and that's been really the thrust of a lot of the campaigning by left-wing media. Well,
do you want to show, while we're talking about this, the front page of the West Australian, because the youngest daughter has been in hospital here in Perth, at the Perth Children's Hospital. I'm just going to interject here and explain that here in Perth, about 6 weeks to a month ago, a little girl called Ashwarya Ashworth died at the Perth Children's Hospital. There's a lot of community sentiment around children not being seen in a timely fashion in the hospital system. There was a lot of grief around her story. So this little girl from the Tamil family being photographed, it's sort of that context in which the West Australian public is seeing this in part.
It's hit a nerve, but really this is something bigger than really just the health system in Western Australia. This is about our immigration law, and it's about really our rule of law. Now, I know, so the points I want to make about this, firstly, this is not a point about compassion here. This is a political problem that the Morrison government has to fix. So the government is getting pressure from what you'd call those teal electorates around inner cities of the major metropolitan cities, people who
By teal we mean liberal blue but a bit of green?
Blue and a bit of green. So, you know, you might say Kooyong in Victoria, or some seats around, you know, Warringah used to be liberal, but now you'd probably say it's a little bit more green than teal. And you've got media campaigning. You've got left-wing news outlets like the ABC and the Guardian and the West Australian, all campaigning strongly to show compassion. But really, the question here isn't compassion, because if that was the principle, why aren't we showing a similar level of compassion? Because I have sympathy for the argument. I feel.
Oh, no one wants to see children away from their parents or sick, or, you know.
What about the thousands of people who tried to get here by boat? That's a terrible situation for human beings to be in.
It's horrible.
But sometimes the compassionate thing is to observe the rule of law and say, no, you don't meet the circumstances. I know it's a bitter pill to swallow, but I think there's going to be many people upset. But having said that, we don't know what the decision looks like. You know, obviously we've got news outlets happy with the decision, so that's fine. They've been campaigning. I wonder what you know, everyday Australians out there are thinking about this. And what's more, there's not a political office in the country that doesn't have, maybe not before them now because of COVID, but has dealt with people who don't have the legal clout, who don't have the media backing, who have found themselves pregnant on the wrong side of the immigration law, and who get deported. And that is, if not a weekly, a fortnightly occurrence all around the country, at least before before COVID and before we had problems getting into
I
them.
noted former Immigration Minister Amanda Vanstone wrote about this today in the 9 newspapers and said whichever decision, she'll, sort of respect that decision. But in the same thread that Peter Credlin has said you can't run an immigration policy on sympathy, it's very difficult to talk about this without sounding hard-hearted, because we're talking about families,
That's right.
we're talking about a little girl, and there's been a very strong media campaign, which we're pointing out to you here on the front page.